What's up, Locked On Cardinals fans? Lucas Smith here. This is going to be the second show released on this Black Friday. The first one was about the Hall of Fame with Jeff Carr and myself. The second one is part 2 of that conversation with Jeff and myself. We talked a little bit of the Hall of Fame, but also Reds and Cardinals offseason to-do lists. Just as a warning, this was recorded before the Steven Matz deal was announced. Actually, moments before the Steven Matz deal was announced. So that is referenced a little bit. They might sign him. He obviously has time. So we're talking offseason to-do list for the Reds and Cardinals on this part 2 of the conversation between Jeff Carr and myself. So stay tuned. It's going to be a good one.
Well, that would definitely be a welcome surprise, or not a surprise, a welcome sight to see. And I wouldn't mind if he was the only one that got in. He might be joined by a couple other individuals in the Cooperstown Hall of Fame in 2022. But we're going to go ahead and move on to a little bit more pressing topics, if you will, as we move into the offseason. It's still the offseason. Baseball is still operating at regular circumstances as of right now. Pending lockout seems to be all what people can talk about. But you're not wearing any Reds gear. And we talked about this off air about why. Why don't you tell some of my listeners, my watchers, why you're not wearing any Reds gear and give us an update on the Reds offseason?
So it's something we've been talking about quite a bit on Locked On Reds. The Reds ownership, and it's coming through the general manager and the different interviews he's had with the press ever since the season ended. They have mandated almost day one of the offseason that they are realigning payroll with their budget. They are not worried about the holes in the roster. They are not worried about how they can improve and make the playoffs next year. They are worried about the dollar signs and how much people are getting paid. You saw that with Tucker Barnhart being traded to the Detroit Tigers to avoid even the buyout on his contract. They traded him to the Tigers, and the Tigers picked up the option. And to Tucker's credit, speaks to how good he's been. The Tigers are exploring options for extending his contract, so I was happy to hear about that. And then Wade Miley was given away. They literally put him on waivers. They didn't want to trade, or reports where they tried to trade him. But I don't know why you can't pick up a $10 million option and then trade him during spring training or something like that. I mean, he was awesome last year. He was statistically, arguably, the Reds' best pitcher. And they're like, no, we don't want to pay him $10 million. We don't even want to pay him the $1 million to buy out his contract option. We're going to put him on waivers and see if anybody's interested. Ironically enough, the Cubs were interested. So now he's pitching for a division rival. The Reds have been ridiculously cheap in this regard, and because of that, I said that I would boycott wearing any Reds gear, and it's been about 2, maybe 3 weeks now. It's kind of hard to tell, but I have not worn a Reds hat. I have not worn a Reds t-shirt. I am waiting until they actually make a move that makes them better for next year. If they bring back Nick Castellanos, fat chance. If they actually add somebody to try and replace the production that Nick Castellanos is leaving the void of in right field, that would be nice. Then I will continue. I will restart wearing my Reds gear. But for right now, yes, red polo. Yesterday on the podcast, I wore a Cincinnati Cyclones t-shirt.
Nice.
Minor league hockey team here.
Yeah.
I've worn Bearcats stuff because the Bearcats are amazing.
I don't want to talk about it.
I am very.
I'm an Illinois fan. That's why that comment was made.
Ooh, yeah. And they were close with Arkansas tonight.
Or they haven't even seen that final yet.
Right before we started recording, they finished up. Arkansas ended up winning 73-67, but yeah, it was
a good game.
It was a back and forth game all the way. There was this and okay, real quick tangent. There was this one possession right there at the end of the game with like a minute and a half left that Arkansas had the ball, and I swore they got like 8 offensive rebounds. Like the Bearcats just couldn't box out in that one instance, and I was a little bit annoyed. But hey, it was still a good game. Love Wes Miller. He is the answer. The future is bright for the Bearcats. But anyway, that's why I'm not wearing any Reds gear right now.
Sounds like we need to get a Locked On Cincinnati Bearcats podcast going, Jeff. I think you might be, not that you're not busy enough, with Locked On Reds, MLB channel coordinator for Locked On Podcast Network. You're not busy enough, but
yeah, no, I got time.
Yeah, well, the Cardinals have made a couple signings. Obviously, they started the offseason by re-signing, or not before the offseason even started, they re-signed Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina. So they will continue to haunt your nightmares for another year, Jeff. Sorry to say.
Of course.
As they,
That
likely.
Molina was. Oh no, that's this coming year. He's doing the farewell tour. I was
Right,
trying to think.
they've said that they're retiring, but Lord knows if Yadier Molina will ever retire. And Adam Wainwright has a spot in just about any broadcast booth in the country waiting for him because, oh my goodness, is he a good color commentator. Loved watching him, ironically enough, do the White Sox and Astros ALDS this season. So they made those moves. They re-signed TJ McFarland, left-handed pitcher that they acquired middle of the season as a double play machine, looking to re-sign Luis Garcia. Yeah, as well. Those two guys really saved the bullpen, man. I've been talking about this recently on Locked On Cardinals that, when the big three of Genesis Cabrera, Giovanni Gallegos, and Alex Reyes kind of got overused and taxed, these two guys are brought in as kind of no-name pieces, and they turn this bullpen around. Because instead of having one, maybe two guys every other night, you had 2 to 3, 3 to 4 options of guys you could go to. So I think Luis Garcia should be a top-line priority. He might cost you $5 million, but without that signing, the Cardinals have anywhere from $30 to $35 million to play around in payroll. As of this recording, they have not signed Steven Matz, although Steven Matz is expected to announce his decision by Thanksgiving, according to reports by John Heyman. And the Cardinals are one of, I believe, 8 teams in on Steven Matz, so could have Steven Matz. Marcus Strowman is also linked to the Cardinals. Cardinals Twitter has gone bananas and wanting Marcus Strowman. I think they got Marcus Strowman and St. Louis Cardinals trending on Twitter yesterday. That's how much they want Marcus Strowman. So hoping if Steven Matz is signed and Marcus Strowman is not, Cardinals Twitter might go a little bit different direction. But there are 3 ways for me that the Cardinals can improve their team. Shortstop, if they don't want to go the direction of Paul DeJong and Edmundo Sosa. Trevor Story would be a nice, cheap option given the market. Starting pitching, Marcus Stroman, Steven Matz, as I've talked about, or the bullpen. Luis Garcia would be a nice re-addition, if you will. Lars Nootbaar absolutely tore it up in the Arizona Fall League, so you feel good about him as a 4th outfielder. But this pitching staff was tested in 2021. Without Adam Wainwright, this team does not sniff the postseason because of all the injuries they dealt with and lack of performance. I'm not trying to just place the injuries as an excuse. The starting pitching also underperformed. So I think that starting pitching will be item number 1. I would like to see them be aggressive and go for Trevor Story. I think that would be a nice reunion between him and Nolan Arenado. Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies might actually kill me if that happens. But I think
Arenado and him.
That would be unfortunate for him. But I do think that it's interesting to see where the Cardinals go because they're going to spend the money. They said they're going to spend money. It might take a while. Well, John Mozeliak, president of baseball operations, said it might be a patient offseason, but they've got money to spend. They're no longer paying Matt Carpenter, Dexter Fowler, Carlos Martinez, Andrew Miller, all off the payroll. They did fine. Matt Carpenter had a tremendous Cardinal career, so that money is gone. They've got money to spend, and unlike the Reds, they are not realigning their budget. The Cardinals, if they don't make an offseason splash, if you will, and I would consider any of the people that I've mentioned, Story, Matt, Strowman and Story more so possibly. If they sign any of those, I would consider that a splash. And if a free agent signing does not happen in this offseason, color me shocked because I think the Cardinals are ready to win. They got a new manager. Not that they haven't even been winning because they've been winning, but they're ready to take that next step and go for a championship rather than a postseason run or a wild card berth.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Strowman. He had a really nice performance against the Reds when the Mets played the Reds earlier last season. So I'd hate to see that on a regular. But you mentioned Mike Shildt, and that was something I wanted to talk to you about because I thought it was ironic. And I know that, we had talked during the season at multiple times, and I know that you were very unimpressed with Shildt, but I thought it was ironic that he was on the list for Manager of the Year, and the Cardinals were like, nah, we don't want him. I thought it was crazy. And there were so many people, so many Reds fans that looked at what the Cardinals did in that crazy win streak, and they made the playoffs, and they moved on from their manager. And then they looked at what the Reds did and the crazy collapse, and they missed the playoffs. And we extended our manager. What's happening here? How did you perceive all of that?
If I said this phrase once, I said it 4 dozen times. philosophical differences. That was the reasoning behind John Mozeliak dismissing Mike Shildt. And what's crazy too, Mike Shildt earned Manager of the Year votes in 2018. He won it in 2019. He received votes in 2020. And as you mentioned, he was a finalist in 2021. And in 2018, he managed a team for the second half. That was it. Mm-hmm. He was winning. What was it? That the prettiest of baseball? Was it the most exciting? Ron Washington with his, windmill at third base, exciting? Maybe not. But he was winning. He made a deep postseason run in 2019. 2020, any team who made the playoffs deserved recognition, especially the Cardinals, because of what they went through with COVID and the doubleheaders and et cetera, and the winning streak, as you mentioned. It came as a shock. That day, I just finished recording the podcast for that day because the news broke in the morning. And I hit end record, and I looked at my phone. I had 3 missed phone calls from my mother, and Twitter was going nuts. I didn't understand it because Mike Shildt had been winning. He wasn't the most popular with the fan base, and John Mozeliak did not fire Mike Shildt because the fan base didn't like him. But I'm just saying that for some context. Right. Oliver Marmol could make or break John Mozeliak's career as the Cardinals president of baseball ops, because this is the third man that John Mozeliak has practically handpicked to do the job. He hired Mike Matheny. He promoted Mike Shildt after Matheny got fired, and you could easily justify that firing, by the way. And then he has handpicked Oliver Marmol after firing Mike Shildt. Bill DeWitt said it was a difference between Mike Shildt and Mozeliak's camp, kind of dusting his hands clean of anything.
So, I'm picturing Moneyball whenever Art Howe is just refusing to set the lineup that Billy Beane wants. Is that kind of like what you're thinking too?
A little bit, but I think that, and again, this could be me, biting at the bait that John Mozeliak has let out. At least he has said that moving forward, managers will have autonomy. The manager will have autonomy. He has sold me on Oliver Marmol. Plain and simple. I am really excited about the Oliver Marmol signing. I'm really excited about the Skip Schumacher as bench coach, former Cardinal, as well, with the rally squirrel in NLDS with his batting glove routine, ritual, and everything of that nature. So I'm excited for this coaching staff. You mentioned that I wasn't a fan of Mike Shildt. I was probably one of the more positive Mike Shildt defenders around. And was I a huge fan of him? No, I'm not trying to just say you're wrong, but I will say that I defended him more than probably the average Cardinal follower did. So I think that it definitely came as a shock to me. I am looking forward to what Oliver Marmol does. It was weird to me too that if Shildt was let go for philosophical differences, then you hire his bench coach, which likely will have very similar philosophies to him. But you also never know. Coaches stay together a long time and could disagree on key things, butt heads on one thing. So I don't know. But it was a shock to say it plainly. And I do not think Mike Shildt is done in baseball. He's going to find a job. He's a smart guy. He's been around the game a long time. It was just unfortunate to see his Cardinal career come to an end like that after being with the organization for 15 plus years and working his way up. Basically a Brian Snitker, much shorter amount of time and without the cherry on top of a World Series trophy.
True. That was probably just one conversation. I was cherry picking a little bit there, but
no, you're right. His bullpen decisions left a lot to be desired. His lineup construction was either the same for too long or too sporadic. And again, it's I'm not getting paid to do it, so it might be a little easier for me to critique. But I'm excited for Oliver Marmol. But I have a question for you. So if Jeff Carr, you are GM of the Cincinnati Reds, you get to make one move: trade, free agent signing, firing, whatever. One move. What move are you making?
I think the obvious answer, and it's what I would still do. Like I'd like to say that I could think of something crazy and pull it out of a hat, and people be like, "Wow, I didn't think of that. That'd be a great idea." Resign Nick Castellanos. Like if you bring back Nick Castellanos, I think you're still looking at a team that. Yeah, it's got holes. It's got some pieces that really need figured out. And I read something the other day that said that they are considering doing the same thing that they did to fill out the bullpen this past year. And as any NL Central foe will know, that certainly worked for them, not for the Reds. So I don't know. It's not going to fix all ails, but it will certainly revamp a fan base that is absolutely, I mean, so far as my money is concerned, this is the lowest the fan base has ever been. Like,
really?
everyone is looking at this team and thinking there's no reason to have expectations for them because they are telling us not to have expectations for them. They are telling us that we are they are more worried than their QuickBooks than they are about the win-loss total that they're going to have next year. And there's rumors about Castillo, and there's rumors about Sonny Gray, and very quiet rumors, and I don't think this would happen, but rumors about Tyler Miley. Guys like that being traded to almost reset some things. And if you trade one or both of Castillo and Gray, you can forget about contention next year. The Reds are going to come in fourth. As the team is right now, they can be a plucky team that sort of fights there in the middle of the NL Central. And who knows, maybe they catch fire and fight for a wild card. Maybe that's a big stretch at this point. But the one move that I would make is to bring back Nick Castellanos because you can sell the fan base on having him on the team.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the clearer move, but it's clear and obvious because it's the right move, in my opinion. So I would agree with you there. Just a quick question, and you can give a quick answer if you want. You mentioned signing somebody to replace Nick Castellanos if he does leave, which I'm seeing reports of Miami being a fit for him, which is kind of surprising to me. But what are your thoughts on a Jock Peterson signing? Free agent, did a really nice job with Chicago and Atlanta, World Series champion. I would love to see, I wouldn't love to see it from a Cardinal perspective, but I think a Reds fan would be impressed to see that short porch in right field with that left-handed bat.
I would love to see it. It's funny because I have memories of Jock Peterson at Great American Ballpark because I was at the Home Run Derby in 2015.
Yeah.
Whenever Todd Frazier beat him there in the final. I would love to see it. The one question I would have about that, though, is I know that, he's a lefty. The biggest problem that the Reds had last year is you put a left-handed pitcher on the mound, you're going to shut down their lineup. They have to, if they were thinking of improving at all, in any way, shape, or form this offseason, they have to improve against left-handed pitching. And I don't know, I haven't looked at his splits, but I don't know what his splits are against left-handed pitching. Mm-hmm. So I think that would still remain a weakness even if they bring him in. And Castellanos was actually an exception to that rule for the Reds lineup of being able to hit left-handed pitching. So I would love to see it because Jock Peterson is an exciting player. But I wonder how much he would cost, and I don't know that he would fix that hole.
Yeah, well, you mentioned being bad against left-handed pitching. The Cardinals currently have 4 to 6 starters lined up for next season that are right-handed. So we'll see how that goes with the Cardinals starting rotation. What did you say?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's just solid. But to wrap up here, we'll finish up here shortly. It was announced on Wednesday night that you mentioned before we went on that the deadline to tender someone's contract has been moved up because of an impending lockout and impending work stoppage coming on December 1st and 2nd. I just don't see anything getting done before then. I don't know how long the stoppage is going to be. Do you have any different thoughts, any additional thoughts? That deadline being moved up, to me, is a clear tell sign that it's not happening by that deadline.
Yeah, they might as well just have come out and said, there ain't no deal getting done. We're starting the lockout December 2nd because if you're going to go to the lengths that they're going to move up that deadline, that's an important deadline. There's basically they even said in the ESPN article that I read about it is that they didn't want players who weren't sure if they were going to get tendered or not to be in limbo during the lockout. So this lockout's probably going to last a few months, and it's going to be a situation where they didn't want those guys being forced to either figure out if they're getting tendered a contract or if they were not tendered a contract, be a free agent and find somewhere else to play in about a month of time before spring training would start. I said, and this will come out tomorrow, but there's a podcast that's coming out with Jason Burke from Locked On A's, Bryce Patrick from Locked On Rangers, and Ethan Smith from Locked On Pirates, and myself, where we talk about a bunch of different stuff. And one of the things we talked about was the lockout. And they said, all right, gun to your head, how long do you think it's going to last? When's it going to end? And I said February 2nd. I think Groundhog Day is probably when we get a resolution to all of this. But I think there's going to be some time. Because when the owners came out and said war-based arbitration, I was like, oh, boy, they are far apart on any sort of deal because there's no way a player is going to agree to that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. No, it's unfortunate because to me, what was the sign for was coming, and again, I'm not trying to be like I predicted it, but this is, well, a lot of people thought this was 2020 COVID shortened season, right? The debate they were having, the Players Association and the union, it was not about player safety. It was not about health. It was not about protocol. It was about how much money am I going to get? How much money? What's the prorated salary actually mean? Like, where's the money going? What's the revenue going? Teams, how much money am I losing because of this? That's when I think a lot of people started to realize they are really far apart at a really crucial time in these negotiations. This lockout is coming. I'm being optimistic. I'm going to pull a date out of thin air, and I'm going to go January 17th. Okay. That's not a birthday. That's not an anniversary. I saw it in January, and I thought 17, so I said it. January 17th. I think that's how long the lockout lasts. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's shorter, but we'll see where it goes from there. It's a sad thing because I think baseball, if it's marketed right, could really do some wonderful things right now. It's unfortunate that a lockout is pending.
Now, it's funny you mentioned that. January 17th is Martin Luther King Day. There you go.
Wow. Okay. Maybe he liked baseball. I don't know. That's a big thing.
Subliminally. Yeah. I think it's going to be, there's definitely going to be lots that comes out of this. Like we said, the DH is coming. We're probably going to see expanded playoffs in some way. I don't know how much more radical it might get than that. I think that the salary structure is going to change in some way. I don't know if there's going to be a salary cap. I know that they've been fighting for that. The owners have been trying to finagle that in there somehow. But I'm sure, Lucas, you've said something to this effect. At the end of the day, we're going to be talking about all this. We're going to give our opinions on things. We're going to give our angles on how we see these different updates of the CBA and things that they're negotiating. At the end of the day, we just want baseball. Exactly. And I really hope that there's not going to be a delay, because I've heard everything. I've heard somebody say it's going to get delayed. We're not going to see baseball till May. I heard somebody say there's not going to be a lockout. So obviously that's not going to happen. But
I'd like to know who they're talking to.
Right. I'm like, that might have been down the street at the local bar, but no. It's going to be weird. And the unfortunate thing is, baseball is in a position, Major League Baseball is in a position right now where they are the clear third biggest major league or professional sport.
Without a doubt.
And they're going to risk a lot more damage to their sport if this lockout lasts any kind of long and forces a delay in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that and again, both parties probably are going to say this. Nobody wants a delay to the season. Nobody wants a delay to spring training. Nobody wants a delay to pitchers and catchers reporting. Nobody wants a delay. Now, how willing are you to go? How willing is the players' union to bend on their request to make that happen? And vice versa. How willing are the owners willing to bend, say, okay, you can have this so we don't have a delay? How important is that really versus how important is you getting your money? I think that these contracts that we're seeing, the Wander Francos, the Fernando Tatis, these 10-plus year contracts, and in Franco's case, pretty cheap for what he's projected to do at the major league level, that could definitely be something that is brought up in terms of contract structure. I think a salary floor and a salary cap will be talked about. Definitely the level of competitiveness across Major League Baseball is going to be talked about, because I know you want more competitive baseball in Cincinnati. I know Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates wants more competitive baseball in Pittsburgh. Yep. I just think that there are a lot of problems, and not that they're all going to get solved, and not that they all need to all get solved in the new CBA, but more problems need to be addressed than there are currently ones being addressed. And it's just unfortunate that we're at this point and that we're pushing the deadline. And I agree. I just don't think that there's anything that is going to happen in the next 2+ weeks, give or take 2 weeks and 4 days, 2 weeks and 2 days, depending on when you're listening to this, that's going to result in an agreement by that date.
That's why it's one of those things that, with this being Thanksgiving, it's like, what are we thankful for in baseball? Well, we're thankful for this, we're thankful for that, but in the back of our minds, we're like, but there's this stupid thing coming up that it's gonna be interesting how everything gets navigated. It's not gonna look pretty at all.
Nope. Hopefully, we'll have brighter conversations ahead, my friend. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Whether you're listening to this on Wednesday or Thanksgiving, depending on how Jeff and I cut this conversation up, we thank you for tuning in, whichever day this is on Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Reds. And Jeff, before we go, why don't you tell Locked On Cardinals listeners where they can find you?
You can catch me at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. I've been a little less active on Twitter here recently, but that's going to ramp up soon. And you can also find the podcast literally wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube.
On YouTube, and it's free wherever you want to find it, as well as Locked On Cardinals. I'm at LJ Fastball, as you can see down here. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, at LO_Cardinals is the show's Twitter and Instagram account. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. And until Jeff and I talk to you the next time, be sure to stay safe, stay well, and have a fantastic rest of your day.